Hello and welcome to episode 4 of Searching for Truth, and this week I am exploring survivors of sexual abuse. I knew this was going to be a big one. I also knew that I was always going to do it. Why? Because I am digging into my own truth with this. And it's kind of what I had in mind to do when I started searching for truth, was to dig down, dig deep and search my own truth. And what I love about searching for truth is that whilst I am digging deep and really exploring my truth, I'm also able to help others. It almost feels like directly at the same time. Certainly with the guests that I bring in, I know that it's helping them because I'm getting feedback from them afterwards. And I'm also starting to get some really positive feedback from listeners that via my searching for truth, they've been able to dig a little bit deeper and untangle some of their own truth as well. So I knew that this was a big one, and I did get triggered. Not during the interview, but during the preparation of the interview. There were certain things that I talked to my guest Tonianne about that I'd never really spoken out loud before. And I felt it. I felt like something had shaken up inside. But what I'm realizing is that shake up inside is good. Because if there's any negative emotions, any raw emotions in there, then they are, whether we like it or not, whether we know it or not, they are having an effect, having an impact on our lives in some way or another. And I'm really awakening to all of that. The more that I'm doing this, it really is like an awakening of consciousness. Another reason I am really, really passionate about this interview as it stands at the moment on the 28th of August 2020 is because it feels like something's going on in the outside world. It feels as though sexual abuse, paedophilia is somehow being normalised. I don't really understand what's going on. I think there's something much bigger going on behind the scenes, and maybe I will search for truth on that. But the timing for this just seems absolutely right, because as you'll hear from myself and Tonianne, sexual abuse, I was going to say the F word, but I'm not going to. It messes up lives. It cannot possibly be normalised. From the moment an act of abuse happens, whether it be to a child or an adult, but especially to a child who is not fully developed yet to understand, it ruins lives. This has to stop. It has to stop. So I ask you, please, if this triggers you in any way, or you know of anyone who has been affected by abuse, sexual abuse, then please share it. And I am open to talking to more people about this. I really am. So if you've got a story, you want to share it with me, then please do get in touch. Searching for truth, dj@gmail.com. But for now, let's go on in there. Let's search for truth. This is myself and my guest, Toni-Ann, talking about survivors of sexual abuse. Hello, Toni-Ann.
Hello.
Hello.
Happy to be here.
It's because of you that I'm really thinking of making the title to this podcast, Survivors of Sexual Abuse.
Mhm.
Because well, we're going to find out, because you're going to talk a lot about this, and I believe after doing a recent masterclass of yours, that's what we should maybe call it, but we'll see as we go along.
Mhm.
The truth is, I'm still searching on this one. I'm really still searching, and I've already spoken to you about this, is
Yeah.
when we had our little chat yesterday.
Mhm.
I do actually think that I was triggered a little bit around the trauma
Mhm.
of the sexual, the sexual abuse,
Yeah.
and I wasn't expecting that. So I do. So the truth is, I don't know exactly what is going to come up today.
Mhm.
I don't. So it's. But that is what searching for truth is all about.
Yeah.
I feel as though, especially with you, Toni-Ann, I feel in a safe space. I
Absolutely.
don't think I would have shared certain things with you yesterday if I hadn't have felt safe with you.
Mhm.
And I think that searching for truth in a safe space is a really good thing to do.
Yeah.
So we're
Uh,
going to talk a lot about that. I'm going to introduce you now, and it warrants a proper introduction, because you've been on a real journey. So,
mhm.
Toni-Ann, you are a survivor, like myself, of sexual abuse. You're a psychologist, a coach, specializing in helping other female survivors to flourish. And you take survivors from surviving to empowered and thriving, so that they can finally begin to create a life that they truly love and that loves them back, instead of being haunted by their past.
That's
That's a
right.
beautiful introduction. That's a beautiful, I mean, I've read that from your website, but that's a beautiful description.
Yeah. Oh, and you said it's so lovely. It's lovely to receive and hear, actually. So thanks, Donna, for that lovely introduction. Thank you.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. And I feel, I mean, we haven't known each other for that long. I've known of you
Yeah.
for a few years,
Yeah.
but I think we're supposed to be doing this.
Yeah. I agree. It's like we've known each other probably around 4 years actually, but we've crossed paths. It's always been through other people,
Yeah.
hasn't it? But I know that when I first met you, um, when I watched you speak actually, and I haven't said this, I don't think I've said this to you before, but I watched you speak and I remember being so moved. I was actually moved to tears. And it was myself and a friend, and I just really felt, I don't know, I just really felt this invisible connection with you. And then since then we'd spoken and a few messages here and there, hadn't we? But here we are today. It kind of took us here,
Yeah,
to this moment. So
it really has. I think the coconut, my coconut oil kept us connected for a bit.
yes, yes. Yes, the amazing coconut oil. I was like, me and my daughter have run out. We need
I need some more.
some.
No, I think certainly since searching for truth is has been born with me, and watching you on Instagram, and yeah, just feeling more. I wouldn't say it's more of what I've seen. I've been feeling that there's
Yeah,
some synergy, there's some connection with you. And
yeah,
after speaking to you yesterday, we've actually got a lot, quite a lot in common
yeah.
when it comes to um, what we're talking about today.
Mhm,
Yeah, and the age that we were, the primary age,
mhm.
we've got quite a lot in common. So I think our frequencies with have kind of gotten together, and
Yeah,
now here we are.
yeah, definitely, definitely. Like magnets have just been attracting each other, and now
Yeah.
we're here. Yeah, I actually said to you, didn't I, today? Oh my life, I feel like I'm talking to myself.
Yes.
I did say that, didn't I?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it's definitely meant to be.
So I'm gonna just carry on with a little bit on where I left off with when I just started talking.
Hmm.
And I've sort of written it down. This is a really, like I said, I got triggered, so I knew I had to prepare a little bit more than perhaps what I have done with previous podcasts,
Yeah.
because if I'm triggered, then it's obviously because there's something maybe raw still there,
Mhm.
and you're going to talk a lot about this, how we can protect ourselves but also thrive from that. So I'm
Mhm.
really looking forward to getting into that. But initially, like for me, it is obviously maybe still a little bit raw, so I wanted to prepare. So I have actually written something down, and I think this might be a way of us starting off this interview, really,
Yeah.
because this whole thing is like, it's an ongoing journey of self, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
And that's,
Definitely.
I mean, in a nutshell, that's what I'm trying to do with searching for truth. But this is really some things, for me, I think, with when we're talking about abuse, sexual abuse and child abuse,
Mhm.
we are going back a long way,
Mhm.
a long way back in some cases, to when those first negative, horrible emotions
Mhm.
got embedded.
Mhm.
So it's almost, I feel like, yeah, it's raw, Donna, and you're triggered, but just consider how far back
Mhm.
you're going.
Yeah. Definitely.
It's deep.
It is. It is. And I think that sometimes, especially when we're in this line of work, that we can like be bad on ourselves, or maybe beat ourselves up, or maybe, I know for me it took me a long time to actually sit with and create the space for me to feel triggered, just literally just to feel triggered and be okay with, I'm triggered. It's okay that I don't have all the answers. It's okay that, you know, I don't feel great right now. Because actually, like you said, especially with child abuse, but also with adult, when it's happened during adult years, sexual abuse, there's so many emotions and so many energy, so much energy that happened from that event that we were unable to process at that time, because we literally didn't have the resources or the emotional resources to. So the fact that it's came up now is absolutely a sign for you, or that it's surfaced now, and for us, when we meet these different parts of ourselves or parts of our wound, that we do have the emotional resources now to manage it.
Yeah.
Because if we didn't, it wouldn't be coming up, so I think we can find some comfort in knowing that to be true.
Yeah. And I want to touch on a little bit about those emotions,
Hmm.
and but I don't want to focus too much in on them, because any people listening, I want to focus on the lightness. I want to focus on the light. But one of the really big emotions for me that I feel I have dealt with now, thankfully, was guilt.
Yeah.
So for a very, very long time, and I think it was my now husband, my partner, that really helped me with this, actually. But for a very long time throughout my childhood, which is the real, it saddens me so much when I think back, not for me now, but for other children that are going through this same thing,
Hmm.
because I really felt a huge amount of guilt. I think from the moment an act happens to you that you are, as a child, is wrong
Hmm.
and shouldn't have happened, but you've partaken in it, although unwillingly.
Yeah.
For a child, you are then in the wrong.
Mm.
because you have, this is, I'm talking about myself here. So I felt like, well, I must be wrong then. I
Mm.
must have done something wrong. And because of that, children tend to not say anything.
Mm.
So they keep it quiet. I mean,
Mm.
in a lot of cases, children are told they have to keep quiet.
Yeah.
So they're actually being told by an adult,
Mm-hmm.
it's being confirmed to them that what's happening is wrong.
Mm.
Because if not, why are you being told not to tell loved
Mm.
ones?
Mm.
So that guilt that you're carrying into adult life is
Mm.
huge, Toni-Ann, isn't
Yeah.
it? I mean, it's just
It,
massive.
it really is. It really is huge. And I guess it's because as well, I first of all, I can absolutely I absolutely resonate with what you're saying around guilt. That's been something that I've struggled with. Excessive amounts of guilt, struggling with saying no has been a real thing for me as well, and the guilt that comes with that. But it's shown up in all sorts of ways for me, and it is common for other survivors that that I've worked with and that I've connected with. And I think it comes with, really, my feeling around it is this secret, is that we've been told in a lot of cases to keep this secret. And with secrets do come that kind of eerie energetic feeling of guilt, of shame, that it's a secret, because it's something to be ashamed of, it's something that is wrong. And like you've said, it's something that we've partaken in but unwillingly.
Mm.
And that is for both children and adults. And in our society, we can even see with the Me Too movement, of women coming out, that there's still this challenge with disclosing, not just for children but for grown women, because there is this feeling of doing something wrong, or there's something that we could have done to have prevented this from happening, that somehow we've contributed to it. And I definitely feel as well that there is something energetic, I feel that happens between the abuser and the individual that's been abused, where we carry this guilt and this shame that actually never belonged to us, and actually it belongs to them. And it's almost like there's this energetic emotional transference that happens, where they have this stuff, and because they're unwilling to look at it and deal with it and work through it, they give it to us. And as children, we're so impressionable, and we take on energy so much, I guess, so much more easier and more quickly than adults do. um, and yeah, we just take it, and then we take that bag as if it was ours and make it ours. So I definitely think there's some of that as well, of taking
That
on
is
responsibility.
really, that is really powerful to
Yeah.
because, and I almost, I think maybe, not only do they kind of, and you get it from them, but because it is almost as if, I mean, obviously I don't know because I'm not a perpetrator, but it is almost as though they're free of the guilt and they've just passed it all on to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're just probably going off, maybe doing it again,
Yeah.
but they're freeing it off to them. I can really feel into that, actually.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's what I feel from from working with this and looking into this and working with and connecting with other survivors, and just feeling into what makes sense for me. I definitely, because we can feel it anyway. We can feel those energetic interactions just on a normal everyday basis when you go out. We've all had that moment, especially highly sensitive people, where you've been around somebody and you've just felt afterwards like drained, a bit drained, you know, where or you've felt down or you felt low, and you've gone in there all happy and you've come out feeling that way. And it's because there's been this energetic exchange of when they've said, here, take this, and they feel better, they leave feeling great, and you feel crap, you know. Yeah, you've absorbed it all like a sponge.
Yeah.
And we have these energetic exchanges as humans all the time, but we're just not aware of it. And this is about making the invisible stuff visible, you know. And so I absolutely do not believe that that situation, that interaction, and that transaction between the abuser and the individual being abused is exempt from that at all. I definitely feel that that happens even more so in a more powerful and disempowering for the abusee.
So
Wow.
I want to talk about this a little bit, because I mean, if children and adults could speak up more and could find that within that's why I'm loving what you're doing. You know, you are, and you're going to talk more about this, but let me just get this back up. You are yeah, so stop fighting to survive after sexual abuse and thriving instead. That is what you are, you know. And so that surviving, that thriving, I think is being honest and being open. And but if only we could just, like children especially,
Yeah.
you know, that are just,
Yeah.
and maybe because they haven't then shared it throughout their childhood and they've carried it with them, they perhaps don't want to put it on their loved ones when they're older, because they don't want to hurt them. So they are in effect still carrying it themselves.
Yeah.
I would love to be able to have the power to do something about this, because it saddens me. I work with children, you know. The reason I'm an entertainer, or used to be before lockdown, was because one of the things that I love is to see the children laughing and smiling and having a good time. It's why I love doing what I do. So to know that deep down inside, and I would have been laughing and smiling if I was watching me as an entertainer at 5 years old,
Yeah.
but inside there was something else going on.
Yeah.
That was a secret.
Mm.
So somehow, Toni-Ann, we've got to get to these to the children, to get them to know it's not, but it's so difficult. I don't know what the answer is, and I'm not asking you for the answer. I just want to get it out there.
Yeah.
So, and also I think for parents of children listening or watching this,
Yeah.
just to be, I mean, I now talk to my son in a way that, do you know what? It doesn't matter what it is. You can tell me anything. I want you to tell me everything. It doesn't matter what it is. So I'm very open.
Yeah.
I'm also not as taboo in the household as my family was. I mean, I'm older, so back in my day, everything was really taboo. So anything around sex or nakedness or anything was just so it's another reason why it was never spoken about, because it was very taboo. So I mean, I'm not a naturist, I don't walk around naked or anything. But I'm much more open about that. I just take, I'm just just a lot lighter about things. And just don't take things so seriously. With my son, to hopefully enable him to be the same and open up, and most importantly, talk to me. So
I love what you've said about that, because I feel I resonate with so much of that in terms of growing up in the house, and I think we're at a different time, aren't we, where actually we as parents we're having to be more open with our children anyway, even if it's not something that comes natural to us or easily to us. Because if we're not, the internet is doing it, the social media is doing it, you know.
Yeah.
So we have to, as parents, kind of level up
Yeah.
and, you know, up our game a little bit, because I feel it's important that they come to us and learn from us first, or if they are learning from things that we can't control, that they can at least come to us and query it and explore what that means for them and attach their own kind of meaning, sense of meaning and understanding to it. So yeah, I love what you're saying there. I do feel that now is maybe different for us as parents than for what it was for our parents, because I didn't have access to all the internet and Instagram and everything else, you know. So yeah, but and in terms of creating this safe space for children to be able to speak about sexual abuse in general, I feel it is so important. And I actually have a book which I can show, we'll give to you the title at the end, and it's a huge book, and it's around the healing journey for survivors. And there is a chapter in there around this, around bringing awareness, building awareness for children to be able to speak about their own, you know, their own private parts, their own sense of their body, and their own energetic space, and who comes into that, you know, both on an emotional and on an energetic level, but also on a physical level, what is okay and isn't okay, and what to do when those boundaries, so it's teaching of boundaries, when those boundaries have been crossed, and that it is safe for you to share that with me, because you haven't by any means crossed any boundaries just because it's your body, you know. It's the other person. And in this book they actually have some sort of organisation, and I can't remember what part of the world it's in, that is actually going out into schools to speak to children about trusting their intuition, and that, I think they label it the uh-oh feeling, of when something feels like icky and not right, and it doesn't matter if you can't explain why, or, you know, you're not going to get in trouble, but if ever that feeling, that uh-oh feeling, alarm sounds, to go and tell, you know, the adult, no matter what, no matter what it is or who it concerns as well. Because sometimes, and a lot of the times, these people that are abusing the children are somebody of authority and somebody of trust. And a lot of the time we look at the statistics show that the majority of time it is not a stranger from the park, it is people that we know, that parents know, that, you know, trusted adults know, or are the trusted adult. So it's about educating our children to know and feel into boundaries, what is okay and isn't okay. And if that feeling, that intuitive feeling, that emotion comes up of something's not right, it doesn't matter who it is, you know, it doesn't matter who it is. We're not going to be angry with you, and for you to come and tell us, you know.
And so for the children, it's teaching them to recognize that feeling, that first gut feeling.
Yes.
And I talk a lot about that as an adult, you know, to recognize that, you might call it your first sponsoring thought, or that first trust, that first feeling you get. So for that to be filtered in for children, I think that, that sounds like a really good. I'd love to know, definitely, if we forget or whatever in this, then I'll get it off you at the end and I'll leave it in the notes. But that sounds, and whatever that anyone that's going out into schools, I mean, that's another thing I don't want to touch on about what's going on at the moment, because it takes us off course, but it is an issue, because I also talk to schools, but it's more about confidence and self-esteem and stuff like that. But I'm wondering whether I'm even going to be able to talk to schools in September, because there's an issue of whether schools are even going to be able to open properly, let alone have people coming in. So I'm just hoping that this whole thing isn't going to be another reason to stop
Yeah.
the likes of people going in, because I imagine children after this lockdown period, some children are going to need more support than ever.
Definitely, because as we've said, you know, these things, there's a lot of cases that and women that I've come across, survivors, where, you know, there's cases of incest, where these are people that the abusers are people that they're living with, you know, and this is which I guess puts even more of a barrier there around disclosure. And this is why it's important for children to know that there is this safe space for them to trust this, what you've said, first sponsored thought, but then where do they go and who do they go to? And as adults, you know, it's about us, I guess, releasing the idea and the thought that it is a stranger, or it is, you know, it's something that happens out there, when it's not. It's so common. It's so common, and we need to be able to hold this space for them of, they can come to us with anything, and we will be able to manage that no matter who it is, you know, and we will be able to take the right and the correct and the aligned action from what they share. And, you know, a lot of the times that's just not the case, because it's like you say, it's taboo. It's not spoken about in society.
Well, it's difficult to do as an adult, let alone
Yeah,
a children, let alone a
yeah,
child.
yeah.
So I just want to, before we move into the light,
Mhm.
and I want to just a little bit about, you touched on something then, how for me, having experienced sexual abuse at an early age, I lost myself.
Mm.
So, and I almost felt like I didn't belong to myself.
Mm.
So, a way that I've put it sometimes is, it was like, it was almost like my head was there, my body was there. The two weren't attached.
Yeah, yeah.
So I could do anything with my body because it didn't matter, because my head was there, my body was there.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a sense of self-abuse,
Mm.
putting yourself in situations, unsafe situations,
Mm-hmm.
because you've lost, or you're losing, if not already lost, respect for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that act of sexual abuse
Mm.
has damaged your own respect for your body.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I had a lot of, and I think that talk that you mentioned when you saw me talking, I think there was a lot, I think I know which one it was. It was when I was talking about how we leave the past. We just walk away from the past and we leave it there. But actually it's you, and it's there as a little girl in there.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
still
It
back, it
was.
was that one, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah. And you can hear in that, I can hear my own emotions still in there. So a
Mm-hmm.
lot of all of this, including this interview with you and the talks that I'm doing, I'm still searching for my truth. When you hear emotional, you see, I can feel emotions coming up. It's because there's still stuff there.
Yeah, yeah.
But that was very big, and that was something you know, it's kind of what happens. You can almost escalate sexual abuse yourself, almost in your, you know, your, not escalate it, but you can just escalate the damage within yourself
Yeah,
if you don't do something about it.
yeah.
Yeah. And I
Definitely.
noticed as well, my sexual drive came in a lot earlier because of sexual
Yeah,
abuse.
yeah,
And I know that's quite common as well.
yeah, yeah. It
Makes
is.
sense, really.
Yeah, yeah. Because I guess this sexual energy, because it is an energy, you know, within us, has been awakened before it should have been.
Mm.
Because there's a lot, especially as a child, there's a lot of developmental, depending on which stage of childhood it's happened, still developing, we're still not fully developed. So you know, then that impacts the relationship that you have with, that we survivors have with sex, you know, and that's for myself as well. I'm the same as you, you know. I found that it impacted my sex drive. I had an earlier sex drive, you know, and I was definitely at some parts of my life promiscuous, you know, and like you said, of leaving the body. Absolutely. I think I would call it like checking out. I just emotionally just check out. And for a lot of the time for survivors, this looks like dissociation, you know, and the term is dissociation, which is literally where you feel, you don't feel that you're a part of your body. You don't even feel like you're here. It feels like very dreamlike, and that was something that started to happen to me a lot, and which actually led to me getting help eventually. But I realised looking back that it was happening more than I knew. I just wasn't aware of it. Or most of the times, you know, I was drinking or whatever else to numb out anyways, to leave. I didn't want to be in my body, because I think the underlying message from having been abused is that it's not safe. It's not safe to be in your body, you know. It's not emotionally or psychologically safe, especially then when your body starts doing all this other stuff, which for me was panic attacks, dissociation. It just kind of reinforces that it absolutely is not safe to be in there. So yeah, I totally understand what you're saying about that. It's almost like the development of self-respect hasn't happened because we weren't fully developed anyway. The sense of self hasn't been fully developed. It wasn't developed. So you know, and that's without going too much into child psychology and, you know, what happens and everything else. We aren't developed. Our personalities haven't fully developed. Our sense of self, the way that we relate to the world hasn't developed. So therefore all the other good stuff that comes with you know, a mature development of self is self-respect, self-love, self-worth, self-esteem. Those things don't get to fully develop. So we do find ourselves in situations that I guess just mirror and reflect that lack, you know, of esteem, of respect, of worth for self and love for self. Absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
think a lot of women and men obviously have experiences, but tend to find the road to awareness of what's happened to them usually when they've sought help in the form of counselling, therapy. I know that was what it was for me, and that was through talking to my now husband, who just couldn't believe I'd never spoken to anyone about it. He was just like, I can't believe you've never spoken. Really, it was like, could not believe it.
Yeah.
And I had a breakdown in the doctors. I was ill at the time as well, so I managed to get some psychotherapy for a few years.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the same for you, wasn't it? You managed
Yeah.
to get some support, and that. But it's not too late. Thankfully, we're both here talking about it, and hopefully
Yeah.
going to be helping lots of others.
Yeah.
But it was late though, wasn't
Mm.
it? It shouldn't have been. Can you I've spoken a lot about myself a little bit. Can I pass over to you now to share a little bit about your story and maybe leading up to getting support and what you're doing now?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So mine's very similar to you, Donna, that I hadn't shared. I'd shared with a friend when I was younger, and that was because there was a re-triggering, a trigger came up for me, and it kind of felt that I had no choice. And she's still my best friend to this day. And then again, I just put it down and, you know, stuffed it down, locked the door, and just carried on. It was literally like I'd compartmentalized that this had happened and that was it. And then as I it was as I started to go into this line of work and doing my psychology degree and learning more about repressed memories and all of that, that it would awaken it. But I just was like, no, I don't want to go there. And then eventually I spoke to my daughter's dad, my partner at the time, about it. And yeah, and before this, sorry, I had some therapy, but it wasn't around sexual abuse. It was because I'd started to have panic attacks, the dissociation, what I spoke of, you know, where we're literally leaving the body, psychologically was happening a lot. And I was working a lot with trauma survivors, not just sexual abuse survivors, all sorts of trauma. But there was, you know, a few cases where I was working with them and they were disclosing and I was supporting them. But I still hadn't made the connection in my mind, you know. I just thought that I was stressed because I had lots of other stuff going on. And yeah, I went to see somebody and I got some support with how to manage my panic attacks, understand the triggers, etc. And it was great. But then it all came to a surface again. And I spoke to my daughter's dad about it, and he was like, I really think that, you know, like yourself, I think that you should speak to somebody again in more detail. Because I think I'd had 6 sessions of CBT, you know, and actually what was needed was for me to delve into that, to delve into the past and to start to make sense of some of the stuff that I wasn't able to make sense of at the time. So I did, and I was in psychotherapy for years. And then I got some specific sexual trauma therapy as well. Yeah, and it's funny because how I came to it, how I started that journey was from something else. It was from physical things like yourself happening in my body, panic attacks. You know, it was almost like, I don't know if it was that I didn't see it as important or if I felt maybe that I wasn't ready. But I do remember when we did start to delve into it in psychotherapy, having this overwhelming sense of fear of, oh my love, I'm not ready. I feel like this is just going to swallow me whole, you know, and if I focus on this, I'm going to have to put my whole life on hold because it's just too much, you know, and that I just didn't feel I'd survive it. And of course, that's not true because here we are.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting how physical things start to happen. And I had been to the GP actually, funnily enough. I'd gone to the GP for panic attacks. And it was from her saying, you can try therapy, you can either go on medication or blah, blah, blah. You can try talking therapies. And I thought, I'll try it. But yeah, but there was so much shame, even around taking that step. You know, I didn't feel courageous, the actual fact of what it is actually, you know, looking back, it is a courageous and a brave step to take, but I didn't feel that at all. I felt so much shame and guilt and embarrassment.
Yeah, that's what we're carrying, isn't it? It just makes
Yeah,
you realize, and just talking to you, it's like, hearing you say that, it's like, wow, this is a big, massive shame and guilt that
yeah,
we put away in a drawer and we just put away. But
yeah,
you can't. That's why searching for truth and what you do is so important, because you can't actually, well, you can just put it away,
yeah.
but it's never going to be away. It's
No.
always going to be there, and it's always going to pop up in some way, shape, or form for the rest of your life until you open that drawer.
Mm,
And yeah, I was going back to remembering my psychotherapy. I mean, I was with the lady, I think I was seeing her for a good 4 or 5 years,
mm,
actually,
mm,
every week or every few weeks, I can't remember.
mm-hmm.
That was a, yeah, huge help for me. But yeah,
Yeah,
you're right, it's all coming back to me actually, just the amount of how difficult it was, even just opening up to the doctor and taking the steps of going to the session. And
yeah,
I did an exercise. I did something which my psychotherapist said would be very useful for me to do, and that was to write a letter and to go and talk to my mum. This was about something I hadn't spoken to you about yet, but
Mhm.
and I did talk to my mum about something,
Mhm.
and she advised that because I needed to let it go. I needed to let go of that.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, it's huge. So
Mhm.
what? So how long were you? How long were you getting support for seeing psychotherapy?
Oh, probably around the same time, to be honest. I had CBT sessions first, and they were for a few weeks, I think for about 6 weeks, something like that. And then I got psychotherapy support, and I would say that that was like 2 years. Um, and then I had my daughter, and a lot of things resurfaced for me. A lot of memories were re-triggered, and I went back to my psychotherapist, and then I seen some a specialist sexual trauma counsellor. Um, so yeah, it's been like on and off really for years, this journey, this, and then in between all of that of accessing support and stuff like that, I've been, I've had some amazing books and workbooks that I've worked through with myself, and yeah, it's just been so illuminating.
I think
Yeah.
that's a really good thing that you've said, because what I will do is I'll leave in the show notes some books that I recommend that have helped me, and maybe you could do the same. Certainly
Yeah.
that book that you've mentioned as well, which is
Yeah.
slightly different, but because some people listening, women listening, might be thinking, well, I can't go to therapy, I can't do this, I can't do, I haven't got time. Because what I've done over the last 20 years as well is albeit not full on because I'm not really a bookworm, but I've read or I've referenced a lot of books over the time. So I have personally developed myself
Yeah.
over the years,
Yeah.
and that's something that doesn't cost much money at
Yeah.
all, and you can do before you go to bed or in the
Yeah.
morning, or there's, so I will take some maybe
Yeah.
references from you.
Definitely. Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, definitely. I love books. I love books, and um, I feel definitely that books change lives. I'm actually myself in the process of writing around this, for survivors, because they have absolutely changed my life. And yeah, a lot of it is around the work that I've done with counsellors in that space, and having that somebody there to hold that space for me to safely explore what's happening for me inside. But it's also been, reading the books and doing the answering the questions and the journaling and the crying, and the releasing. That has been so much a big huge part of the journey as well. And like you said, it often costs around £10, £20 max, doesn't it, for a book that's there really whenever you need. You can pick it up, put it down, and go at your own pace. So absolutely, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm loving what you're doing. I mean, you are just, I don't know if I said this at the beginning, but I did your masterclass, online masterclass last night, and it was a couple of hours. And for survivors, honestly, Toni-Ann, I thought it was really, really good because, and a lot of that is because of not just the tools and the knowledge that you've got, which is obvious, and experience, which I think is really
Mm.
powerful. You know,
Yeah.
your experience behind it,
Mm.
your honesty, really came through.
Mm.
Really came through, and I think, and you could feel that your soul, your heart, your spirit was there for survivors, and I really hope over in the future that it grows so that you can help as many survivors as possible, because it really was, honestly, I felt it. I felt it. And I wanted to hopefully spend just a little bit of this podcast today talking about it, talking about the tools. They resonate a lot with searching for truth,
Mm-hmm.
the whole belief system,
Mm-hmm.
you know, believing in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You stop believing in yourself. You can easily stop believing in yourself and stop feeling worthy of yourself because of sexual abuse.
Mm-hmm.
It can like almost trodden you down. So that
Mm-hmm.
belief, and you talk a lot about that. And another thing I'd like to touch on a little bit, if we can, is the emotional energy side. In fact, you, from the masterclass yesterday, because of your talk of chakras and the root chakra, I did my root chakra dancing this morning.
Amazing, yay.
And I haven't done it for a while. I haven't done it for a
Amazing.
while. The first time I did my root chakra dancing, first time I ever did it, I couldn't put my finger on it, but the following night I felt so emotional and sad. And when I told my dear friend that night what I'd done earlier, she said, Donna, that's what it is. You've basically rocked your root chakra, and now you're feeling incredibly unsafe.
Yeah.
And you're feeling like, because you haven't, you know, you've just kind of for the first time. And she went and sent me to do a meditation and sit on a red cushion. And I
Yeah.
felt so much better. And since then, the power of that has really like brought me into chakra dancing. And you
Yeah.
mentioned it in your masterclass.
Yeah.
And I'd
Wow.
started feeling a little bit triggered after our chat. And I was thinking maybe
Yeah.
it's a safety thing.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm starting to feel a little bit unsafe having triggered this through, you know, talking about this. So
Yeah.
let me get my root all. So you
Yeah.
talk about emotional energy, energy
Uh-huh.
and emotion as well. So
Yeah.
I want you to talk a bit about what you do, because I'm sure there's going to be people listening over time that will be drawn to the tools that you've got and are continuing to bring out for survivors.
Yeah, that's amazing that you managed to do that, because dancing is such a powerful way of connecting with the root chakra. So yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, so I like to work with, there's three things, or three tools, three key tools which I shared in that masterclass. And really it's around, you know, shifting the belief systems, the beliefs that we have about ourselves, our identity. And a lot of these are subconscious, so it's about bringing the subconscious stuff to the surface, making the invisible visible, because there's so much power in the awareness. And then, you know, when we sit with these subconscious beliefs that we have about ourselves, can we then begin to shift our way of thinking,
Mm-hmm.
of first ourselves and then the wider world around us. um, and of course our thoughts create our reality as well, so it's so important to watch our thoughts and be mindful of what it is that we're deeply believing on a subconscious level, because we're calling that in and we're creating that. Life is just a mirror of what's happening, you know, inside for us. So that's why the awareness is so key and so powerful.
I thought you described that really well, actually, the mirror. I mean, lots of people say it, but you are a reflection. You're looking at, you know, so what you're feeling on the inside
Yeah,
or thinking, and you look in the mirror, that is what it, so if you can change that
yeah,
and look in the mirror, that's what's there.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I said an example I gave was lipstick.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, I was saying, you know, if your lipstick is smeared, or if there's something in your teeth, or you know your makeup's a bit, you don't go and change it on the mirror. You know, you can do what you can to the mirror, but it's not going to change the fact that your lipstick's smeared or there's something in your teeth. You know, we have to address this being, this vessel first, ourselves first. So yeah, I think it's so important, and that's one of the tools. And then the other tools around the nervous system, so the feeling of safety, which you're talking about, cultivating that sense of safety inside. activating the part of the nervous system that makes us feel safe and relaxed and calm, because this is directly connected to our thoughts and our feelings. And then finally, the tool is the emotional energy system. And this is really around the fact that we are energy, and we don't just have the physical body, we have an energy body. And when traumas and experience happen in our lives, in our world, if we haven't processed it, it gets stuck, it gets trapped in our energy field. And you've touched on some of it. You're talking about chakras. You know, I do like to work with the chakras in my work, the 7 main chakras, especially the root chakra, because the root chakra is our sense of safety, our stability, our security. It is concerned with the physical body. And often when trauma happens that threatens our sense of safety, it does cause malfunctions in that chakra, so which then in turn affects the fight or flight system and our perception of the world being unsafe, and us being unsafe in our own body, really. So yeah, I do like to work with the chakras, especially the root chakra, to really be able to find our centeredness, our sense of centeredness, and grounding back these emotions. And emotions are just energy in motion. They're just letting us know what frequency, without going too much into metaphysics and everything else, but what frequency we are at. We can know what vibration we are at the moment by what emotion we're feeling. And we tend to label them as negative or positive just because that's what we do as humans to make sense of things. But actually they're just a message. They're just letting us know that they need to move and they need to breathe for our field, our energy field, to be attracting more of the stuff that we want to attract, basically.
I
And
talked
that's
to
why,
you about, just to say what I mentioned, I think it was before we started recording, the trigger that I felt after speaking to you yesterday. So just sort of in relation to what you're saying there, identifying your emotions or being in touch with your emotions, what I realized towards the evening was that I really started to crave alcohol.
yeah,
And I'm at the moment not drinking, but really did fit. I want to drink. So, and it was like, but thankfully I've done this work. I still get caught out by it, and I think I probably always will, but thankfully I was able to be aware of what was going on. His emotions have been triggered, and
which is
it's
amazing.
like years. I've been doing this for years, just covering it up, blotting it out, numbing it out. What can I do to stop this pain? Don't like it. It's coming from somewhere that I haven't quite dealt with yet. I need a drink,
Yeah,
or I need a smoke, or drugs, or whatever it is. And thankfully I was able to be aware of it. So when you talk about the I think you're right, the nervous system and the emotional energy is like, because with your thoughts, so many people, and myself included, when I was younger, I thought I was my thoughts.
yeah, yeah,
I was,
yeah,
my thoughts were me.
yeah,
And until
yeah,
you do this work and you actually realize and you separate yourself,
yeah.
you realize,
Thank God we're not. Thank God we are not our thoughts, if
well, I
you're in
think,
my mind
yeah,
anyway.
yeah, no, but sadly, I think that's why some people give up.
Yeah,
Because if you do actually believe that you are your thoughts, the way that your thoughts can go,
yes,
I mean, your thoughts can be just whatever you think them to be.
yeah,
It tends to be a
yeah,
hell of a lot worse than actually what really could
yeah,
happen or does happen.
yeah,
So if
yeah.
you actually do believe you are your thoughts, then I can kind of understand why people do end
Yeah,
it for themselves.
yeah,
So there was, yeah, that's a big part of the nervous system, isn't it? And the
yeah,
emotional system together, really, like
yeah,
learning how to manage those thoughts and recognize and observe them.
yeah. Yeah, definitely, because I think the way that I presented it in the masterclass was as a triangle, you know, and that these things are one side. You have the belief system, the energy system, the emotional system, and the nervous system, the physical body, and they relate. They come together to make this being, this triangle. Um, and yeah, and we can identify with our emotions as well, you know, and that's what happens. We become the trauma. We think that we are the trauma. We think that we are, you know, the obsessive, intrusive, pervasive, often disturbing thoughts that we have as humans anyway, especially if we've been through trauma. um that we are them, and we're not. Who we are is the observer. The observer of that is who we are. And when we are really able to know and trust and believe in that, is when, you know, magic can happen, and when we really take back our power,
Yeah.
because that's who we are, really. And the same with the emotion of the feeling low. You know, like when you say just sorry about feeling triggered, feeling low, and wanting to go for a drink, you know, and I can totally relate. I speak a lot about it in my Instagram, as you've seen, about numbing out. That was something that I just didn't even make the connection between. I would go and have a drink. I wouldn't even think I wouldn't even be aware of what I feel, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'd just be like, I want a drink. I want some wine
Yeah,
tonight.
I want it now.
I want it now, and I'm gonna have a few bottles, you know, and a few cigarettes to go with it, and all will be well with the world. I just had no idea, and it wasn't until, you know, my body started to tell me that something isn't right, that I then started to become mindful. The CBT really helped me with that, with being mindful of what was going on up in here, what I was thinking, and why what I was thinking was influencing my heart racing, you know, the whole symptoms of a panic attack. No wonder if I'm thinking this, and then I'm not just thinking it, I'm believing that this is me, you know. So
CBT is great, isn't it? I think we should
yeah.
mention that cognitive behavioral therapy.
Mm-hmm.
I've read a lot about it. I think I've not had it myself. But I believe in it, and I've read the books on it, and it's a lot of people I know have had a lot of help with CBT. And
Yeah,
as you're saying it there, it's kind of logical, and
yeah,
it kind of makes sense.
yeah,
But it's only when you start, like you say,
yeah,
figuring it out, that it
yeah,
becomes logical and it makes sense. So suddenly,
yeah,
and I think that's why it works.
yeah,
Until you sort of know it, it's like, until you know, when you don't know, you don't know. You
yeah,
know?
yeah. You're just a slave. We're just a slave to our thoughts when we don't know. We're just, you know, we're just doing and being as our thoughts tell us to be, which is just crazy, because that we have so many thoughts in a day. We have thousands and thousands. I can't even remember the
It's a
specific
50,000 thoughts a day.
thoughts, yeah, a day, you know. So to think that, no wonder if we are believing that we are our thoughts, that we struggle with having a sense of self, or
Yeah.
have a fractured sense of self, if that's what we're thinking that we are. So yeah, CBT was very helpful for me for making that distinction between myself and my thoughts, you know. And actually that and mindfulness has helped me tremendously with it, and that's a big part of my journey, and still is part of my practice, and something that, you know, I have to practice daily.
Yeah.
And throughout my day, really, I've just been an observer of what I'm thinking and feeling. And yeah, I think that's been able to take the CBT stuff to another level, and then add in the energy work, um, and the feeling into the body, the nervous system work as well. So
Yeah.
yeah, but totally relate to the numbing out. And because what else do you do if you believe that you are your thoughts and your feelings? Where else do you go with
Where'd
that,
you
you
go?
know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to, I really want to push what you do, Toni-Ann, because I after doing your masterclass, I just know in my heart that you have got something that's going to help women, uh, survivors, to thrive, to stop fighting and
Mm,
start thriving.
yeah,
This system you've been talking about, the
yeah,
belief, the nervous system, emotional system, is all about coming through and thriving, isn't it?
yeah, yeah,
And we want more women thriving and not
yeah,
fighting.
yeah.
That's your kind of key message, isn't it? Stop the
Yeah.
fight that perhaps has been going on for years. It's not,
Mhm.
it doesn't need to be there anymore. You don't
No.
need to do that anymore.
Yeah.
And you really do have some great tools and experience,
Mhm.
to help lots of women. So I really want to push what you do. How can people find you and get in touch with you?
Yeah. So I have an Instagram account and a Facebook page at the moment. So it's at Heartspace with Tonianne, both of them are. I also have a private Facebook group as well, where we talk about, it's just for survivors, and I work with women survivors as well, female survivors of sexual abuse. So in there, you know, we share, including myself, some of our experiences around how this shows up for us now and how we can implement and use some of these tools to ensure that more of the inner thriver is showing up in our worlds, you know, and that we're working from and operating from and creating a life that genuinely feels good and that we genuinely love from this space. Um, and also, there is just something so powerful, even this conversation, there's just something so powerful about connecting with another survivor. If you are a survivor, there's just, it's almost like you feel like somebody fully sees me. I am seen, I am heard, I am felt, you know, and that somebody just gets it. And there is just something so powerful about being in a space.
I think that's what it was when I spoke to you yesterday.
Yeah,
I think that that's maybe what a part of it was the
yeah,
fact that, because it's not very often you talk to another survivor, or that you
no,
are openly talking to another survivor. I mean,
no,
we probably are. I mean, because I mean the stats are horrendous,
yeah,
aren't they?
yeah,
But so you probably are. But to be openly talking to a survivor about what happened and certain thing, not what happened, but you know, around it.
yeah,
You're right. It just doesn't. There is something very healing in itself. I mean, as much
yeah,
as it triggered me, I do believe every trigger, everything you look at, everything you search, everything, it's all part of the healing process.
yeah,
Don't go and get a bottle of wine, just sit with it and
yeah,
acknowledge it. So yeah, I really hear what you say there. I think that's what happened with us yesterday for
yeah.
me.
Yeah, and that's what really started my journey in connecting. When I connected with other survivors through my work, but because of the work, I was actually working in the public sector at the time. You know, there is this thing where you can't share anything about yourself and professional boundaries and all that kind of stuff, which is really what I wanted to do this way of working, really. That it's quite innovative and new and different and against, not against as in, you know, completely against the tradition, but it's not, it's just taking it to another level, really, because there is just something about being seen and being heard, and there is so much healing in it from somebody, that reciprocity of knowing that somebody fully receives what you are saying because they have been through it. There is something just so amazing about that. And like you said, the stats are, these aren't the most recent stats. I think these are like years old. 1 in 5, I think it was, of adults, and I think it was 1 in 3 of children, females. Um, yeah, and how sad is it really that we connect with women all the time, but we have absolutely no idea that they're going through this inner battle. And it's not the fact that they are a survivor, or that they've had this experience, but it's the fact that this is lifelong stuff. you know, and that there isn't a magical kind of overnight cure. What we spoke about earlier, the new levels, new devils, you know, I do believe that every time, like for you now, you've said you've experienced this trigger, you'll work with that and you'll find another part of yourself, you know, which is more of the light, more of the strength that you can anchor into, but that is also has been in the shadows maybe, and we're bringing some stuff to light that has been in the dark. And when we do that, we're able to emerge and flourish into different versions of ourselves, just become more of ourselves. And it's really, what I find sad is that we're not able to have these open conversations that are empowering. They are empowering, even if they feel rubbish at first, because you have met another version of yourself or another level to you. And yes, it might bring another devil, another challenge, but how many women are you helping now in meeting that version of yourself, in putting this podcast out, you know? So
Yeah.
I really believe that women, without getting too cosmically like mystical here, things are shifting and changing tremendously. We're going through a huge awakening on this planet now. We can just, in 2020, the veil has truly been lifted, you know, for everybody, not just on an individual basis, a collective globally, you know. And things are changing, and women, I really believe that women are being called to step into their power, to step into their truth, because things have been lopsided, you know, for a long time. And I believe that the more of us that can heal and that can evolve and that can ascend, the better humanity will be, you know, the ripple effect that has in our homes as mothers, as women. We hold so much together, and if we are in this state of flourishing, of thriving, that doesn't mean having everything perfect all the time or feeling great all the time, but what it means is being aware of what's happening inside of us, and making decisions from this space of awareness rather than from this space of struggle and being a slave to the struggle and the fight, you know. And then the ripple effect that has on our children, the conversations that we're able to have with our children to be able to protect and keep them safe, you know, and for them to know what it is to truly thrive and flourish, not this false example of what happiness is portrayed to be in social media, you know, that it is the light with the dark sometimes, and that's okay. And that ripples out into our intimate relationships, that then goes out into our work. And then if your work is like this, of what you're doing and, you know, what we're doing, where we are serving, that just betters humanity, doesn't it? You
It
know.
really does. And something that was going through my mind as you were talking there, and I was getting really like, oh, this is, you're right, there's an awakening of consciousness, and women,
Yeah.
for women, there's a real place in it.
Yeah.
But something you touched on in your masterclass, and I'm sure you touch on a lot with what you do, is that, so women that have, and certainly maybe through child abuse, I think, and I'm talking about myself included here, I'm quite connected. I'm an empath. I'm in touch with what the energies
Yeah.
around, and now that could be because of what happened,
Mm-hmm.
and because I'm, what do you call it, hyper alert.
Yeah, and hyper alert. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Highly sensitive.
And but then there are gifts in all of this.
Mm-hmm.
I would never want to go back and experience what happened again.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, as I am now, and I know you touch on this, but as I am now, and as you are now listening, you've been through this, is you have a gift, whether you realize it or not. I realize I have a gift of experience, I have a
Mm.
gift of knowing,
Yeah.
and I can use that gift to help heal myself and
Mm-hmm.
find out even more versions of myself,
Mm-hmm.
and go on, and if I feel I want to, which a lot of people do once they start to find themselves after
Mm-hmm.
this, go and use that gift to help
Mm.
lots of others.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to sort of mention that, because I believe that you can find strength actually in, rather than just go in a corner and just feel utterly sad about what happened
Mm.
or about what's happening.
Mm.
Actually find some inner strength in yourself and try and connect with yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and move forward with
Mm-hmm.
that, you know. I'm just going to say, I'm just going to say as well, we did an angel reading before we started recording, and I think it just seems like the right time to mention that one of the cards was the angel of trust.
Mm.
And I just feel like that's something to bring out now,
Yeah.
because it's like trust that it's going to be okay,
Mm-hmm.
trust that you can go from fight to thrive,
Mm-hmm.
trust that it's going to be all right,
Mm-hmm.
and you are all right, you always have been.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I love that. I love that you've brought that out during this point in the conversation as well, because this is about trusting in something, in self, who you truly are. And that's where the sense of inner safety comes from. The inner sense of safety comes from trusting that we are safe and that we are well, and that, there is a plan, and that we might not understand what that is, Um, but I guess building that trust in life again, because something happens when something traumatic happens to us as individuals, where our sense of trust in life, and everybody has or doesn't have religious or spiritual beliefs, so whatever you want to refer to it as God, source, creator, most high, or your higher self, or angels, whatever. But that trust becomes fractured in yourself, in humans, and in the all, whatever that looks like, where deeply embedded in the subconscious is that belief that you can't trust again, you know um, and that's a difficult place to be in and to navigate from, because if we don't trust, we don't feel safe, and if we don't feel safe, we never leave our comfort zones. And actually, what we've spoken about, there is no comfort zone even in the body. We're constantly wanting to numb out from being in, so that is a really difficult place to be in. And I would invite anybody that's listening to begin to give themselves permission to trust in, at least start with self first. If you can't trust other humans, yeah, if you can't trust the all, yeah, if that's broken, but just trusting self, and that you've got this far, you're still here, because many people aren't. Unfortunately, they've made other decisions after experiencing this trauma to not be in their bodies anymore, literally. You're still here. That is strength, that is resilience, and like you said, that is a gift. That strength and resilience is an absolute gift that some people just do not have, and would love to have. They would not the experience, they would love to have that resilience, that grit and determination it takes to still be here after that.
It's like you are strong, you are a
Absolutely.
strong woman to be
Yeah.
here.
A warrior,
Yeah.
an absolute warrior, because people don't know the internal struggle. I think I actually said in one of my posts, the underworld of the soul, and I know that it sounds like quite poetic and out there, but that that's what it is. To have been a survivor, you absolutely have had moments where you have been to hell, you know, inside you've been to hell and back, and that is something to honor, something, you know, and it makes me feel really emotional, and I really hope that it reaches people, that in itself, without everything else, is something to honor, that you've been to hell and back and are still here, you know. That's amazing, and that in itself is something to offer the world, whether it's just your children, whether it's your partner, whether it's your friend. That in itself is something to share. So
I did read that in your Instagram. I love it. I love it. So what is it again? Heartspace with Toni-Ann
yes, Heartspace with Tonianne.
on
Yeah.
Instagram. It's really good. You've got lovely I was actually screenshotting a lot of
Yeah.
your Instagram because I thought I might bring I don't need to, because you have mentioned some of the things from there already, but I was screenshotting them because it was like, oh my gosh, really just feel you in them, you know. It's
Yeah.
I really do recommend people go there and follow you on Instagram, because
Yeah.
you put it out there in such a wonderful way. And this self that we're talking about here, I believe is bound up with love,
Mm.
and it's always been there. I think as once we're born, we're like pure consciousness, and it's just full of love,
Yeah.
even if your family or whatever are not loving you, you are still love. You
Yeah.
can't take that away. It's still
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm really passionate about that. And the another card that came up today, which I'll just mention, is the essence of love.
Oh wow. Yeah.
So the essence of love and trust. Um, I feel like every time I do these, I could get quite emotional because I've had these angels for a long time. I know in my heart that they're here.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I really believe it is so, and it is so, and it's like,
Yeah, definitely. This in itself is a miracle and takes, you know, miraculous, otherworldly support to have this conversation on technology to reach, you know, other people is miraculous, and is absolutely, you know, the work of the divine, you know. And I guess we're just vessels at the moment, aren't we? Just
yeah.
allowing that energy and the love to just come through us right now to share this. So I agree 100% that they're here. Yeah.
Before we finish off, is there anything that you would like to say? Any message around what we've spoken about to survivors out there?
Yeah, I would just like to share and say that a lot of what I've already said, really, that the this inner thriver that I speak of, this empowered, you know, thriving survivor, is not something that is outside of you or something that you have to learn to become. That she's already within you, she's already there. And what's happened is, just like the sunshine, just like sometimes we can't see the sun because the clouds are there or because it's a stormy day, it does not mean that the sun is not there. The sun is always there. And this is that inner thriver, the light, the love, the essence of love that you've spoken about, Donna, is within you. And it's her that's got you here now. It's her that's got you here now. And this journey of thriving is all about, it's a paradox, because it's about, how do I unlayer and undress and release all of what I've taught myself, or that life has taught me to become, so that I can just be freely more of her, who she is at my core. And so actually you don't really have to do much. but just feel into that. I believe that and feel into that. And you've probably had glimpses of her already. Like I said, she's who got you here. She's who guided you to this podcast now, you know. So yeah, if you can just tap into that, the rest of the work is just about leaning into her even more. So you are brave, you are strong, and you are amazing. You are amazing.
Thank you. And there's lots of, we both are lovers of mindfulness. I run a mindfulness on a Wednesday, and you do
Yeah,
it every day. And nowadays on YouTube there is something for everyone. It's
absolutely.
sitting still in quiet, and so it doesn't seem to work for you. There's guided meditations, there's breathing meditations, there's chanting, there's like the dancing, which I talked about, chakra dancing, which is amazing. There are lots of different ways that you, because mindfulness is really the practice of being in the present moment and being in the here and now. It doesn't mean, actually, like we said, just stopping all the thoughts going, completely. It doesn't mean you've got to completely wipe them out. Just be aware of them, because if you're aware of them, then you're in the present.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah, which
just
is where the power is.
yeah, you could be the power of your thoughts. Like, oh my God, I'm thinking about that a lot. Oh my God, I need to.
Yeah.
You're not in it. You're not in those
Yeah.
thoughts. You're actually observing them, and you can observe your own mind going crazy and just say,
Yeah.
actually, I put a stop to that.
Yeah, like where did that come from? That's random.
You talked about journaling, and it's like one thing I do after I've sort of like sat still for a while, especially if I've observed lots and lots of thoughts, and like one keeps coming up and coming up. I know that needs to be journaled.
Yes.
I need to now write down some of that. I need to actually get those thoughts out of my head onto paper, because it just keeps coming and coming and coming. It's obviously getting in the way. And when I'm not in the present moment, that's going to just carry on whirling around. So
Yeah.
a really good way is getting it out on and journaling, getting
Yeah.
it out there. You mentioned that. I don't think you mentioned it here. I think you must have mentioned it in the masterclass.
Yeah, yes, I did. So we spoke about some of the tools that you can use for clearing of energy. And journaling was one of the things that I spoke about, that I love. Journaling is my best friend. And it served me so well. Yeah, I often do it like you said, Donna, after I've been in a space of silence and feeling into what's coming up and observing what I'm thinking, what thoughts have come up. I'll journal. And sometimes I do quite guided journaling, so I love to read, so from some of the books that I've read, or some coaching sessions that I've had, because I also have coaching sessions too. I'll be journaling on that, or just some experience that I've experienced through the day that might have taken me by surprise, where I've met a part of myself that I didn't expect to meet, or maybe that made me feel uncomfortable, a part of myself that I didn't, I'm not comfortable with being, or or that triggered something for me. So I'll write about that and where that comes from, maybe. Yeah, so journaling is amazing. Yoga is really good for shifting energy as well. The key to the key to emotional energy is getting it to move. When we have those moments where we feel depressed and stuck and trapped, it's often because the energy is stuck and trapped, and it just needs to move, it just needs to breathe. So any kind of movement work is great. Like you said, the chakra dancing, amazing, especially for root, for grounding and feeling centered. But yeah, yoga, I like to run as well. Just connecting with nature is amazing for the root, and grounding, earthing, taking shoes off, allowing the chakra that's in the feet or associated with that part of the body, to just connect with earth. That's amazing for grounding and helping us to feel safe and held and supported. But yeah, and just a general sense of finding what you love to do. Somebody in the masterclass spoke about poetry. They like to write poetry, and just do more of it. Just do more of it,
Do
because
more of what makes you feel good.
yes, absolutely, absolutely.
We're
Because
almost conditioned, a lot of people, I'm talking of my own self here, have been conditioned to go to things that make us feel bad. You know, we
yes,
think like short-term
yeah,
fixes, actually, alcohol, drugs, whatever,
yeah,
but actually for the following week you're going to feel really bad.
yeah,
Go to things that feel good. I love that, like the
yeah,
poetry that came up on the masterclass,
yeah.
writing down things that are positive, things that you're grateful for.
Yeah, yeah, gratitude is amazing. Yeah, and that's something that I found quite difficult at first, but since having my daughter, it's something that we practice daily, you know, and I do with her as well, what we're grateful for from the day. It's really important, and that's about welcoming another set of energy, you know, when we're feeling down and um stuck in the other energy, in the heavier energy. That's just like a breath of fresh air, gratitude practices. um so yeah, just doing more of what you love and brings you into a state of love is amazing. It's really powerful. So
Well,
yeah.
I am really grateful to have had you here,
Oh,
doing with Searching for Truth. It's just I feel really quite emotional about this podcast in a
yeah,
positive way.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I do. I feel. Oh, I think in my masterclass towards the end, you know, I got really emotional, and even in this masterclass, in this podcast, I've actually said I feel quite emotional now. Um, and yeah, it's the truth, isn't it? It's
Yeah,
the truth. That's what the truth does.
yeah.
It moves. It moves us very literally, and it's so beautiful, and we need more of this. You know, we need to bring more of this to the world, into
I'm
our
really hoping that
conversation.
survivors listening have felt the space and felt perhaps some movement by exploring their own truth as we've
Yeah,
delved into ours.
yeah, yeah,
That's that's ultimately really what I would like. It's about
mm,
making a difference.
yeah,
And I love the fact that I'm speaking to you because there's a go-to.
mm,
There's a go-to. People can come and they've got an email. I always leave an email address, to but you are a go-to. You've actually got some tools. You've got your degree in psychology. You've got your coaching program,
yeah,
and I love the fact that I'm doing this, but there's a go-to.
yeah,
So
yeah.
thank you, Toni-Ann, so much. Honestly, thank you so much.
Thank you, Donna. I've got
I'm really
goosebumps.
emotional now.
I know, I've actually got goosebumps. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me here. I've absolutely loved it.
And will you come back again, maybe?
Of course.
Yeah,
Yes.
good.
Yeah, that would be amazing. Thank you for having me. I love what you're doing. It's so powerful, and it's so beautiful to connect with you and to just see how you are using your experiences to wake up the world. It's really beautiful, Donna, honestly.
Oh, thank
Really
you.
beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mwah. Bye, Toni-Ann. Thank you.
Bye, Donna. Take care.
Okay. Thank you, darling. Thank you so much.
For having me. It's really powerful. I've literally got goosebumps. Like you can probably, I don't know if you can see my
Yeah,
hair
I'm
on
feeling them.
end.
I know. I know.
I've literally got goosebumps, and I feel that that is so, oh, just so powerful. Yeah. Thank you for providing this platform to have these conversations, Donna. I just can't Oh, I just can't tell you how important I feel intuitively it is, especially with what's happening around the world now with all
Yeah,
these children. And
I know.
it has to be, you know, at least we're doing something about it.
Doing something. I feel so grateful to be doing something, and I know there's a drive, and I know it's from, you know, it's from elsewhere driving me,
Yeah,
probably because of what's going on. It's
yeah,
just because I'm feeling a
absolutely.
real awakening
Yeah,
on this whole searching for truth. A bit like with you, you know, everyone's got their sort of niche, their message. Yours is the fighting to
mm,
thriving. This searching for truth.
yeah,
It's just, and my, you know, my knowledge of sort of an experience. It's just like wow. And you know, searching for truth. The name, it came to me, and I know exactly where I was. I was in the kitchen, and I was thinking, because I was like, Donna Joseph's experience, no, and it was like a voice searching for truth.
wow.
So there you go. What did you think? It's pretty deep, right? Pretty deep, especially if you have experienced sexual abuse or child abuse. I'm not going to say too much now in this outro because the intro was quite long and there's not really much else to say, to be honest. Depending on where you're watching this or seeing it, just please know that it is also on video on YouTube and on my Visible Connections Facebook page. And if you're watching it already, it's also available on Spotify and loads of other podcasts. Just search for Truth, searching for Truth on any podcast. I'm sure you'll find it, which will make it easier for you to listen to the whole thing, perhaps when you're driving or doing your housework. As I said in the beginning, I would love to explore this further with others, especially those that are already comfortable with searching their truth on this, searching the truth on the trauma on this. I would love to explore the truth with you. Get in touch with me if that fits you, then you can please email me searchingfortruithdj@gmail.com. But for now, I am going to leave it at that. Next week, I can already tell you now, next week I am going to be interviewing a lovely lady called Donna, and we're going to be talking about fostering. You'll know, or if you didn't know already, the first episode I ever did was on adoption. I'm very passionate about adoption and fostering. As you've probably gathered throughout my podcast so far, I'm very passionate about children, full stop. So I know that one's happening because I've already done the interview. God willing, it's going to be approved by social services. And if it is, then it's definitely going ahead. So from me to you, I'm going to say goodbye for now, and I'll be back next week. Have a brilliant week, everyone. Bye-bye.